As an actor, Brian Capron is perhaps most famous for his role as Coronation Street serial killer Richard Hillman. Brian left the series in 2003 with great panache, a trail of victims and a smattering of awards. Brian's success is perhaps all the more impressive when one learns of his childhood story in 1940s Suffolk, where the young Brian was painfully aware of the absent father he knew nothing about.
When I was 18, my nan sat me down and she said, I'm going to tell you some things about your dad. He was desperately fond of the baby he couldn't see and desperately worried about me. And he often wrote to my nan. My mum felt very bitter, I think, about the whole thing. So there was nothing. So I don't even have a picture of him, and I don't know anything about him, and that's a bit sad, really.
Brian's mother, Violet, was still very young when she married dashing French airman Claude and became pregnant with her first and only son. When her relationship with Claude failed, she fled back to the small market town of Woodbridge in Suffolk. There, her mother and father, Brian's future grandparents, welcomed her with open arms. But with 4 of their own children living at home, the house was already crowded, and soon after Brian was born, his grandparents told Violet she'd have to find lodgings for herself and Brian elsewhere. Unwillingly, Violet left the family home, and when Brian was still only a few months old, she became housekeeper to an elderly man living nearby in Woodbridge.
She was eventually found a job as a housekeeper to a man who I used to call Mr. Gilbert, and that was in Edwin Avenue. And as I understand it, my mum brought me up for the first 5 years of my life there. She was a single mum, living on 10 shillings a week.
Brian's mother treated his father as a taboo who must never be mentioned, and now in their new home together, the young Brian had another man to contend with, the enigmatic Mr. Gilbert.
The relationship with Mr. Gilbert, this man there, I suppose that's what made it strange, really. He almost didn't exist. He was almost like a kind of ghostly, slightly uneasy feeling about him. It was a very small house and quite claustrophobic. And in a sense, you had this microcosm of a little class system that was operating then. There was a man with some money, and there was his housekeeper, but in a very small house. I never knew anything about him. I never had any feeling of warmth from him. I never had any relationship with him. I never went into his room. I can't even remember his room at all. I don't remember where it was. Must have been next to my mum's room, I suppose. All I remember is my room and my mum's room, and remember that when he wasn't there, then it was our house. And then when he came back in, it was all kind of different.
Mr. Gilbert was no substitute for Brian's missing father. His home was a 3-bedroom terrace with very little space in which a small boy could enjoy his freedom.
I don't know if it's because it was north-facing or whatever, but I can remember it being very wet and damp and cold. I did used to have nightmares, and I can remember distinctly being in my cot and looking up at the wall, and I used to get nightmares about men sawing wood in a forest. Why, I don't know, but it used to frighten me, and I used to scream, and my mum used to come in.
The claustrophobic atmosphere of this house during Brian's time was amplified by his mother's deeply protective attitude. When Brian's French father, Claude, was killed in a plane crash, Violet kept quiet about it. Even now, Brian was left to make his own assumptions about his missing father.
I didn't understand. I wouldn't have known about my real father being dead and the fact that I had a real father, but there must have been something in the atmosphere. My mum's on her own, living there, thinking her thoughts about what had gone wrong in her life.
Whilst Brian and his mother were living frugal lives in Mr. Gilbert's house, only a few minutes away in Grunsborough Road, Brian's grandparents' home was bustling and warm. Indeed, Brian would take every opportunity to escape Mr. Gilbert's to visit his grandparents. Their home is where Brian would have liked to have lived.
My nan was a very classic, matronly matriarch, and a very, very tough and strong lady who had a bit of breeding and a bit of class. And she used to love me combing her hair, so I used to brush and comb her hair. She absolutely loved that. When I was 18, she sat me down and she said, I'm going to tell you some things about your dad. And she also showed me a photo. The first full-face photo I'd ever seen of him when I was 18, looking at this handsome Frenchman. And I was staggered by it because it was like looking in a mirror. It was like looking at myself. And I'd always been told I looked like my mum, and I'm sure I do as well, because they were very similar and we both got brown eyes. But it was staggering. I looked at this photo and I thought, my God, so I kept that photo, and that was taken when he was in the Free French Air Force over here, I think. Subsequently, that photo disappeared, and I think my mum may have destroyed it. I don't know. But after she died, there wasn't one photo left or any mention of my dad.
With his mother's refusal to discuss anything about his father, Brian relied increasingly upon his trips to his grandmother's house in Grunsborough Road to provide the interludes of family life he craved so dearly.
That was where my grandmother was, my granddad, and my uncles. And they looked after me, and they were all my dad, and that they were absolutely terrific. And when I think of Woodbridge, that's where my heart lies. I feel a warm feeling, and I see Grunsborough Road in colour, and I see Edwin Avenue in black and white. If that makes any sense.
Whilst Brian intends to look in on his grandparents' beloved garden in Woodbridge, it is the home he shared with his mother and Mr. Gilbert he feels compelled to visit after so many years.
I'm going back to Edwin Avenue to, I feel like it's to lay a few ghosts. I'd like to see it transformed into something else. And that might help to wipe away all of the stuff that I remember. And bring a bit of closure on that bit, I think. I think it's closure on an atmosphere.
Actor Brian Capron is on his way back to his childhood home in Woodbridge that he shared with his mother Violet in the 1940s and 50s. However, before going back inside the house, Brian wanted to revisit the happier setting of his grandparents' garden in Grunsborough Road. It was to here only child Brian used to escape at every opportunity, to enjoy the sort of family life he was missing in Edwin Avenue.
It seems funny that a lot of my life, the first probably 15 years of my life, my aim in life was to get to this house, to get back to this house, where there was warmth and humour and love. I was spoilt and treated by my uncles, and there was a terrific sense of humour there. They had a terrific, the old Suffolk sense of humour, if you like. I do remember, and I know it was a terrible problem with me. They used to make me laugh till I wet myself, and that happened so many times. And one of the photographs that I still have is me with short trousers in the front garden, and I remember shortly after they kept making me laugh, and sure enough, I was inside with my mum drying my trousers out yet again. So it was a bit of a problem because they just used to make me laugh so much. I was the apple of my grand's eyes, or my nan as I called her. And she was a wonderfully strong, matriarchal figure, very powerful figure in the family, and everybody looked up to her, and she was tremendous.
What an intelligent woman to sit down and talk to me about my father when I was 18, to tell me as much as she knew, and to give me a photograph and show me letters and explain and put in context her relationship with my father. I can see them all there now. I can look at them, I can see everybody. I can see her standing in the doorway. And I can see people walking in from the side. I see my Uncle Ray coming home from work, my Uncle Leslie popping round from the post van. Happy days when I didn't have to, were carefree days for me. Coming here, I didn't have to worry about anything.
It was now time for Brian to make the short journey back to his old house in Edwin Avenue. This belonged to Brian's mother's employer, Mr. Gilbert, and although it holds mixed memories for Brian, this was, for 5 years, his home.
Goodness me, it looks completely different. And if this is... This was very dark and dingy, overgrown. This looks quite pretty. But this is the right house because I can remember the door being on that side.
For the last 10 years, this has been home to Maury.
Hello, nice to see you.
And you.
It's already looking a lot different. Very nice to meet you.
And you.
Brian, nice to see you. Ah, well,
Yeah,
there
come
we
in.
go. Okay, are we going in, are we? Right. Yep. I remember this house. I do remember this house in black and white, and I think that's to do with the austerity and the fact that there wasn't a great deal of... The colour and life here was between me and my mum in our little world, but it wasn't in the whole house. And I'd forgotten about this room, really. I wondered where this room was, but I know it just hits me like that. There was this man who was, paying my mum to be here. He was a rather strange man. Never didn't feel any warmth from him. And I think he was very tight, as they say. Well, yes, this is just an extraordinary feeling. I just remember these stairs so vividly. Now, this room, I have no recollection of at all. The verboten room that I never saw. This is where Mr. Gilbert would have been, so I don't think I've ever been in here. Yeah, I don't have any feeling about this room whatsoever. Nothing. This should be the room, my little box room, where I think that I see. Yes, there we are. That's right. Well, now, I always imagine how small could this room be, but it's exactly right. Now my cot was here. I used to on occasion have nightmares in this room, and I remember them very vividly to this day. And what it was I would be in my cot here, and I would look on this wall, and the nightmare was like a film being projected on this wall, and it was men soaring in a wood like this, and I used to be really, really frightened because I couldn't get rid of this image that was on this wall. And there was a kind of a box, and I used to get out of my cot, climb over there, and I used to push it up against this door, because even I think these are the original height of the original handles. And I used to stand on this box and open this door, and then I'd go round and I'd climb into my mum's bed. So I think I'd come in here. Her bed was a double bed, and it was there going down to here, I'm pretty sure. And so I would snuggle in on this side here. And it was just me and my mum against the world. Very interesting, very interesting. That's the room that I spent most of my time in, was through here. Ah, right, I know what's happened here. This was the kitchen, and there would be a kitchen table here. But anyway, I spent most of my life in those days in this room with my mum. And I can remember my potty always being on the floor around here somewhere. And this is where I'd have my ready brek and my OXO. In a sense, the most important relationship in my life, I suppose, happened in this room. The beginning of it, without a doubt.
Brian's young mother, Violet, only took the job of housekeeper here after leaving Brian's French father, Claude. Until the day she died, Violet never talked to her son about his absent father. In her eyes, it was always just her and Brian against the world.
This was the place even that he came to visit. I don't know. Apparently he came to visit me when I was about 1 year old with a lawyer and a doctor to take me back to Algeria. So what was that been like for her, saying, no, 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 you're not having him? So all that was taking place while I lived here with my mum. So a lot of things going on. There would be a feeling, I think, of probably from my mum, a bit of embitterment at the fact that she had to come here, look after this old man and be in this strange house. The relationship with my mum has had, I think, psychologically profound effect on me in my relationships with women. Maybe there was something about my mum that I wanted to reject, that as I got older, that closeness. And on the other hand, maybe I was very needy for it. So maybe that makes life difficult sometimes for people, for women who've been in my life and are in my life. But I hope there's more pluses than minuses. But certainly she had a profound influence on my life, and when I've had some therapy, when I've had some problems in my life, it always goes back to my relationship with my mum. So there's a lot of stuff there. But I think the saddest thing is that my relationship with her here was so light and lots of fun, and as time went on, in a sense, it's so strange, but this was the golden hour in this little room with her. also remember being very upset when she used to get on my potty. I can remember that as well. I was thinking, that's my potty, get off there. Strange how things strike you. Very, very interesting. This is where I spent the first 5 years of my life with my mum, which is a very formative period, which is why I became an actor.
After so many years' absence, the changes to his old home helped Brian finally come to terms with the vivid memories of this place that have been with him for so long.
Now, I'm... this is confusing me because I'm absolutely convinced that the loo was here. It never worked, and he always had to put a bucket or a bowl of water down there. But this is all looking much brighter, and of course, over there was all fields. It's completely transformed to what it was. It's much lighter and brighter now. The whole place feels lighter and brighter. It doesn't have a heavy atmosphere, kind of atmosphere that I remember then. It's very good to come back. It's a very good feeling. It's got a nice feeling, this house, now.